Hello and welcome. Joining me today is the CEO of DFCC Bank, Arjun Fernando, and the Deputy CEO, Lakshman Silva. Hello and welcome. Could I ask you, or before I start actually, could I say many congratulations on your merger? It's interesting to note. However, I'm not quite sure in my mind why we should be excited about this merger. Can you tell me why we should be excited about this?
Yes, if I could just start with this amalgamation has been contemplated for some time, but there were legal constraints. At the beginning of this year, we came out with the Act of Parliament, which enabled us to forge ahead. We feel it's an opportunity to consolidate the two banks, and as a result there will be lower borrowing costs for us when we go to international markets, as well as from a customer's perspective we can offer the full range of services, from a project loan to a working capital loan to foreign exchange, trade, be it on the personal customers, current account savings, any type of personal loans.
Okay.
So there is a wide array of products and services which we plan to offer, and at the same time one of our imperatives is to ensure we look at customer solutions rather than selling services and products going forward.
I see. And but this the other company, your subsidiary, it was a subsidiary, you owned 99.2% of those shares. So what's the gain? What's the gain in merging?
What happened is that due to the legal requirements, although it was 99.2%, DFCC Vardhana Bank was a licensed commercial bank.
Right.
DFCC Bank at that time was incorporated by an Act of Parliament and was identified as a licensed specialized bank. As a result, the two entities has to operate independently. Although it's a fully owned subsidiary of DFCC Bank. The banking regulations are such that two banks have to maintain their own capital basis. They will have to meet their own key ratios which are specified by the central bank and all other monetary authorities. So as two legal entities we have to do that. And also when we look at the network, we had two different networks. That is, Vardhan had about 137 and DFCC also had about 20 branches around the country. But due to this legal separation, although we operated under one roof, we had to maintain certain requirements for legal purposes separately. So it makes a big sense when you say it is now amalgamated together. Now it's a one single entity rather than having to operate as two legal entities.
So the cost of your operations will go down?
Definitely it had to go down.
Right.
There is no termination of employment or anything of that sort,
So
but continuity is there, but duplication of work is to a great extent is minimized.
Right.
And the additional resources that we have found through the amalgamation can be now utilized for other purposes.
Excellent. And traditionally DFCC has been a development bank. Will your focus now be more on commercial?
Absolutely not. Our plan is to grow both areas, to the maximum.
Right.
We will continue to capitalize on our forte, which is the specialized lending or the development banking, but we also see great opportunities in commercial banking. So like I said at the beginning, our main aim is to grow both businesses, but at the same time what we feel is by bringing the two together we have a great opportunity to cross-sell. So when you give a project loan, we could look at the working capital loan and even the corporates, personal loans, all can be done under one relationship manager. So that's the advantage.
Is it going to be sort of an equal focus on both, or is one going to be a bit more than the other?
We will look at the market opportunities and decide. We don't, at the moment, if you look at our balance sheet, it's like 50-50 in terms of the loan book. We like to keep it at that same ratio, but having said that, depending on how the policies unfold going forward, we will adapt our strategies accordingly.
And how, as a development bank, you've had a sort of almost a special status in terms of foreign donor agencies coming to you with funds that need to be disputed. How will that be affected in this new ambience?
In fact, actually, there wasn't any special treatment for development banks if you look at 5 years down the line.
Right.
Over the years, actually, DFCC was incorporated as a licensed specialized bank, and we used to get the credit lines. But over the last 10 years, if you look back, Sri Lankan markets, the foreign credit lines which have come very, very sparingly, had been granted to not only to DFCC bank but to many other commercial banks as well. So in that sense, actually the specialization, although the technical know-how specialization was there with DFCC bank, DFCC received credit lines, but I wouldn't say that those were not exclusively to DFCC bank. So going forward, I mean the country's economic status had changed. So from the underdeveloped developing status, now it's in the middle income category. So the foreign loans that are being granted to Sri Lanka also come in very, very sparingly, and the loans that are coming to Sri Lanka also not on very, very concessional rates. Those are on commercial terms. So I think, I mean, as Arjun mentioned, going forward the forte of development banking will not be given up by DFCC. It will be continue to be there. So as a result, if there are any specialized credit lines that will come on our way in Sri Lanka, DFCC will be selected by those agencies as an organization which had taken over the last 60 years, which had spent over the last 60 years for development banking. We have the specialization, we have the know-how, we had made a significant contribution to the development banking arena in Sri Lanka. So as a result, I think obvious choice of theirs would be still DFCC.
So your options are still very much there.
Yeah, obviously there will be, and we are even now to date we are in certain credit lines. We are taking part in those credit lines, and we are, as he mentioned, actually we have largely funded a lot of development projects over the last 60 years, which have come from small and medium to large scale industries now. So similarly, our extensive network, about 137 branches around the country, still will be focusing on the development banking as well as the commercial banking aspect.
Excellent.
And if I can just add to that, in the last credit line, which was the European Investment Bank credit line, it was us, a commercial bank and a regional development bank. We were the participant. So again, to answer your question, there was nothing to say. It was only for DFCC being the specialized bank.
Right.
But having said that, the important thing is now we are looked upon as the experts. So not only do we disperse, but we were picked as the credit, administrative unit, which monitors. So I believe we have that niche which will continue to play. But when it comes to the credit line utilization, it will be an equal playing field.
I wonder if you can comment on this. Why did the merger fail with the other bank?
If you look at the original proposal came through a budget proposal by the President in 2013 for the NDB merger, and there was a lot of support from the government. With the change in government, that particular support was not there, and it was up to the shareholders to decide.
Right.
So at this point of time, we felt it was opportune for us to amalgamate DFCC and Vardhana and position ourselves to look at any future opportunities going forward.
And would you rule out any mergers with any other commercial banks in, say, next year or the year after?
No, absolutely not. But it has to make economic value to all our stakeholders,
Right.
and we will evaluate every such opportunity.
How important is the promotion of SMEs in the economy as a whole? How important do you value that?
Actually, over the years, everybody, all of us have identified that the SME is a very important sector in the economic development of this country. And DFCC, if you look back 60 years, we had actually taken very active role in SME development. Over the years, if you look back 25 to 30 years, there were dedicated SME credit lines 1, 2, 3, 4, which were funded by ADB, Asian Development Bank, and various other organizations which had come to Sri Lanka. And if you look at the utilization of those credit lines, I think majority of those credit lines have been utilized by DFCC Bank to their own customers. So we treat SME as a very important sector to develop the country, and we have specialized units, actually SME specialized units. Our staff who are handling the SME sector are geared to handle that kind of, so we need to actually evaluate those proposals very carefully, guide the entrepreneur, identify the sectors which they can get in. We have to look at the backward integration which is possible, and also to help them. So it's a long drawn process. It's not a implementation of a loan, disbursing a loan. There's a lot of monitoring, there's a lot of discussion, guidance which is required.
There's a lot of interaction between
exactly. So I think our network of 137 units are geared to handle that kind of thing. So we had spread out over the country, and our specialized units are there, and they would continue to do that. And even in a small way, Vardhana over the last 12 years, in the personal financial services arena, we had taken a very aggressive role in disbursing housing loans and various other things. And we have actually if you look at the portfolios at the time of the amalgamation, we had catered to a SME sector largely, and we have not which we are not seen very much in the Colombo and suburbs, but outstation we are very much present.
Right. And if I can just add, when it comes to influencing policy, now when it came to the European Investment Bank credit line, primarily it was a green energy credit line when the initial negotiations began. But what we managed to persuade the agency was to split that line 70% to green energy, which was the original objective, and another 30% to SMEs. So we made available long-term, low-cost funding to the SMEs purely because of our status with the credit agencies like European Investment Bank and making this line available. So.
Right. Can you tell me what do you intend doing with the 15% shareholding you have in commercial bank?
If you look at the strategic investment many years back on commercial banking, that was because we didn't have a foray into commercial banking. But 10 years back, we invested in Vardhana, and it has grown to a substantial, probably it is the fastest growing commercial bank. So that objective in a way has been met now with Vardhana. So our thinking currently is, if there is a strategic investment which warrants, we will divest our shareholding, but it needs to again make economic value. But it's something we will, going forward, now that we have a commercial banking license, be constantly evaluating. We need to invest in technology, we need to do many investments, so this may necessitate funds, and we know we have this pool which we can tap into if required.
And what of the interest rates? What is your forecast for the outlook, medium?
I mean, over the last 1 to 1.5 years, the interest rates have been hovering around in this particular range. And of course, what we know is that there are certain credit lines which are coming to Sri Lanka through IMF and World Bank. If you look at the liquidity in the market, is about 60 to 70 billion rupees in the market, in the liquidity. So I would believe, I mean, looking at the current situation, this is our personal opinion only, this is nothing official, but what we would see is the interest rates would remain the same for a little while longer than what we expect. So we will have to wait and see what the major budget proposals that are coming up in the near future. That is the asset side, but the liability side, you still see that there is a higher interest being paid for deposits. Deposit customers are requesting higher deposit rates. So it's a challenge for the banking sector to maintain the margins at this moment of time. So I would expect the interest rates to behave on the same way.
From a point of view of a banker, how have you received, have we had stability of policy over the last, say, 5 years?
I believe so, and if you look at what our exchange rate, interest rate and inflation,
Right.
how it has been managed over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I think credit should be given in that regard. So policies wise, I think they've been very prudent. I think what we'd like to see is some consistency going forward and a little bit more clear direction as to what the new government's thinking is. But we believe there are a lot of investors looking to come to Sri Lanka, but ease of doing business and other kind of government approvals which require time need to be streamlined, in my view, for us to really take Sri Lanka to the next level.
And what of your retail banking side? How's that faring?
In fact, as Arjun mentioned previously, over the last 5 to 6 years, we are known in the market as the fastest growing bank.
Right.
That is for a few reasons. One reason was that we were able to expand our network around the country, be it north or south or west or east. We had set up our footprint all over. And also, as a financial organization, we were very lucky. With the assistance of Asian Development Bank, we got a special credit line to help the housing sector in Sri Lanka, and it was a very we got it at a very appropriate time, and that credit line was disbursed around the country, and that credit line is for the mid income group, and also part of it was dedicated for the women who were borrowing from the bank, who want to set up their own first house.
Okay.
So that was dedicated. So we actually, as a commercial bank, we were successful in meeting all the requirements that were set up by the ADB, and we dispersed that money within a period of shorter period of time, and also that is in relation to housing and all the other retail products, be it leasing, be it personal loans, professional loans, credit cards, whatever a customer requires for personal financial services, we were able to successfully introduce and implement it. I think over the last 3 years, we are very well known in the market as a very aggressive bank into the personal financial services arena.
And when you make these loans to these housing loans, what's the sort of ratio to the value of the property? What kind of multiple do you lend?
It all depends on what the first of all, the borrower should be comfortable in servicing a loan. It's not the debt equity ratio that is required.
Right.
But when we really look at if it is a purchase of a property, if it is a purchase of a house, there is a standard 60 to 70% loan to equity ratio that we maintain. So the customers are required to come out with about 30%. But that is not the standard. I mean, if there is a requirement and if there is an ability, a person to repay the facility, we go up to even 70 to 80%. So, but standard, generally the banking practice is that we generally lend up to about 70% of the cost of the investment.
I'm going to ask you this question. If you don't answer it, it's perfectly all right. But I want to ask you, what's your take on retrospective taxes?
I personally think it's negative from a country's perception, and from investor perception. I do realize the government needs funding, but there could be other ways to address it, in my view.
It hasn't been implemented yet, has it?
It hasn't, but
Right.
we feel it's going to be,
Right. But it must put a terrible strain on businesses who have to now, who have perhaps disbursed those profits and made their plans.
There are implications, in fact, because even the plans and forecasts that have been developed now, even DFCC Bank, we have developed our 3-year plans and 5-year plans, and these are basically looking at the investor interest and also the other stakeholders' interest. So when a sudden tax or something like that comes in our way, it seriously have an implication to the profitability, and our plans also can get little disturbed, I suppose.
But in this new age of openness and a level playing field, do you gentlemen perhaps find it easier to lobby the appropriate ministries and state officials to have a better understanding perhaps of the particular difficulties you all face?
I would think so, and I think even if you look at our amalgamation, we made it in record time, from the time the board made the decision to go ahead. And I must, congratulate or say thank you to the relevant authorities in the government who facilitated the process. I mean, there was a sound business justification for the amalgamation, which I think was viewed positively by all the relevant agencies in the government, which gave us the final nod to go ahead. So in that sense, I would say yes.
So it's good, it's encouraging. I just want to ask you this, if I may, Lakshman, please. How is the growth of these online banking ventures and so on? How do you see that happening in Sri Lanka?
I mean, it's a challenge in Sri Lanka. We as bankers, we see that, it's Colombo and suburbs very popular. It's not difficult to market that kind of product in Sri Lanka, online banking. But if you go out of Colombo, because still the banking inclusion has been a problem.
Right.
People in outskirts have not been banking with very much. Their day-to-day banking requirements have been very minimal. Technology was another issue. Infrastructure was another concern that the people had to get into online banking. But I think increasingly the banks have now made use of the opportunities. They have got the people included into the banking system. People do more banking transaction than traditional ways of handling the finances. And also the infrastructure had now gone towards the regions, and as a result I think it had become easier. We also try our best actually to convince the customers to do online banking, and I believe it's a challenge, but nevertheless the banks will succeed in the near future.
Do you take this banking down to schools and so on, so that you can start the process of online banking understanding from the bottom?
Yes, of course, yes. We have been one of the first banks to start the school banking units.
Right.
We started from a Colombo reputed school, and around the country also we have established a lot of banking units. Or more than that, in fact, with our assistance of our subsidiary Synopsis, we were able to launch a very successful online banking, palm top banking unit,
right,
which is successfully implemented across the country, and we at the moment do limited number of transactions on a regular basis, but we are now planning to expand that services into the other services, banking services as well. In the meantime, tomorrow we are launching another very valuable product, online banking services. One of the industrialists who has a large number of backward suppliers who are doing in the supply chain management. We have with the support of the Synopsis, we are introducing a technology driven payment scheme tomorrow. So, and also for the first time Vardhana Bank launched our Lanka money transfer scheme. We felt that inward money transfer is a requirement for Sri Lanka, because lots of our experts who are around the world who are working are finding it difficult to send the money at a cheaper cost. So we have actually DFCC at that time, Vardhana, now the DFCC Bank, we have signed up with about 9 Sri Lankan banks together, and we have launched inward remittance scheme, and which facilitate large number of Sri Lankan expatriates who are working abroad to send the money not through our bank, of any bank of their choice. So that's a very remarkable product, and we are going to expand that service.
Indeed, it's nice to see that the our expatriate workers are being recognized in this way.
Yeah,
so
obviously.
other countries have their own systems and so on.
Just on that, if I may just add again, like mentioned, one of the strengths DFCC has is the group, if I may elaborate a little bit. We have a IT company, which Synopsis, which not only does the bank-facing IT, but also does other system development. So we ventured out to Fiji, Solomon Islands, and now we're looking to Cambodia and Philippines. But again, at the beginning I mentioned about our vision being a financial solution provider rather than financial just products and services. And here with the LMT and KDU kind of that solution, we've been looking at the whole ecosystem of the customer, the suppliers, etc., and provided solution. So I believe we have a little bit of an edge compared to some of the other banks in the technology forefront to push out certain solutions.
Excellent. And how do you see many opportunities perhaps for DFCC, for your bank, when in terms of this new government's megapolis development and their own the new infrastructure that they're talking about?
Yeah, I think DFCC's strength has been partnering the governments in their development plans, and we feel it will be no different going forward. Wherever there are opportunities, not only on infrastructure but the related projects around the infrastructure, I think that's where the opportunities arise going forward. So we are very confident that we have a role to play in this.
And finally, final question. Do you feel Sri Lanka is, would you advise a foreigner to invest in Sri Lanka?
Absolutely, I would, and we still need a few things to get right, but having seen markets like Hong Kong, Singapore, how they were able to attract foreign investment, I believe we are well positioned in this part of the world with the India and Pakistan, Bangladesh, the large markets being around us, to be the sort of the hub or the focal point for venturing into those markets.
And really, the final question, would you advise your children to stay in Sri Lanka? Is this the land of opportunity?
I would. One of my sons who had just finished in the US has come back.
Oh, okay.
So well, one is already in the US finishing.
Right.
It will be up to him to decide. But I believe we are poised to take off, and I will encourage them.
Excellent. What about you? Do you have children?
I do have children.
And are they at that age where?
Oh yeah. I mean, at the moment they are completing their higher studies in Australia.
Right.
But the point is that my eldest son is into a specialized area. Whether
Right.
that opportunity is available in Sri Lanka is a
Something
question
else.
that. But of course, anybody. I mean, like we are Sri Lankans. We have been in Sri Lanka, so I don't see any reason why our children should not come to Sri Lanka.
Wonderful. Both you gentlemen, thank you very much for
Thank you. Thank
being
you.
on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.